Have you ever trusted someone only to feel your peace, your energy, and even your sense of reality begin to slip away? Some people don't reveal their cruelty through anger or aggression. They smile through it. They speak softly while dismantling your clarity. These individuals don't need to shout to create chaos. They destroy from the inside out. They study you, mirror you, and disarm you with charm. And by the time you sense something is wrong, the damage has already begun. In this video, you'll learn how to recognize the 7 behaviors that signal you're not just dealing with a difficult person, but with a psychopath, someone who poses a hidden threat to your emotional well-being. These are not loud warnings, they are quiet patterns, but once seen clearly, they can no longer be ignored. With insights grounded in Stoic wisdom and psychological truth, you'll learn how to protect yourself, not with fear or anger, but with clarity, strength, and self-mastery. Let us begin. Calmly, decisively, and in defense of your peace. 1. A fundamental lack of empathy and emotional depth. This is the quiet, often invisible fracture that separates those who are merely selfish from those who are truly dangerous. While most people feel a natural sense of guilt when they've hurt someone, or a deep concern when someone they care about is in pain, the psychopath does not. That emotional mechanism, the one that prompts apology, compassion, or the desire to make things right, is simply not there. Instead, what you find is a hollow performance of humanity, a carefully rehearsed imitation of concern, a practiced expression of sympathy, words that sound right, gestures that look right, but a presence that feels cold, detached, and ultimately unmoved. They can watch you cry without blinking. They can hear your voice break and feel nothing. And the most disturbing part, they often appear calm, even comforting. In the moment, they might say the words you hope to hear. They might even hold you, nod, or offer a quiet, "I understand." But if you pay attention, really pay attention, you'll notice that their response lacks one essential ingredient: resonance. There is no emotional weight behind their words, no shift in breath, no pause that reveals inner conflict. What you're receiving is not empathy. It's a calculated gesture designed to maintain the illusion of connection. The Stoics taught us to live with reason and virtue. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." The psychopath violates this wisdom at every turn, not out of ignorance, but out of indifference. To them, your emotions are tools, your tears are signals, your vulnerability is leverage. If you share your fears, they will store that information. If you reveal your insecurities, they will catalog them. And when the time comes during a disagreement, a power struggle, or a moment of manipulation, they will use those very truths against you. Not impulsively, strategically. You tell them about your fear of abandonment. Later, they disappear for days without explanation. You confide in them your battle with self-worth. Later, they mock your sensitivity in the middle of an argument. You open up about your past trauma. Later, they bring it up casually, or worse, sarcastically, as if it's something amusing. This is not immaturity. This is predation. They do not lack emotional intelligence. In fact, they often have it in abundance. What they lack is emotional responsibility. They understand feelings, they just don't care about yours. And that's where the deepest damage is done. You begin to feel invisible, not because you aren't speaking, but because nothing you say ever seems to land. You explain your pain, and they remain unmoved. You cry, and they remain still. You reach out, hoping for warmth, and receive silence, or a cold logic that feels more like judgment than support. Over time, this emotional starvation erodes your self-worth. You begin to wonder if you're too sensitive, too needy, too much. But the truth is, you're simply asking for something they do not possess and never will. Relationships require emotional investment. They require presence, consistency, and the willingness to meet another person in their experience. But a psychopath views relationships not as sacred ground, but as opportunity, a stage to perform, a place to extract. And once they've gotten what they came for, your admiration, your loyalty, your secrets, they grow bored, detached, dismissive. And when you need them the most, when you reach out during moments of genuine pain, they vanish. Or worse, they mock you for needing anything at all. The Stoic path calls us to clarity, to observe, to accept, and to act with wisdom. If you find yourself repeatedly feeling alone in the presence of another person, if you feel that your deepest truths are heard but never held, acknowledged but never honored, that is not a flaw in you. It is a reflection of them. If their kindness disappears the moment you assert a boundary, if their compassion fades when it no longer benefits them, then what you are experiencing is not emotional connection, it is emotional theater. You do not need to argue with someone who shows you, again and again, that they are emotionally absent. You do not need to explain your worth to someone who treats your pain like background noise. You only need to see clearly, to step back, to walk away not with bitterness, but with strength, not in anger, but in awareness, because your emotions are not weaknesses, they are signals. And when someone consistently ignores those signals, you must stop giving them access to your soul. Remember, self-mastery is not found in suppressing your emotions. It is found in honoring them, protecting them, and never handing them to someone who only seeks to use them against you. 2. Zero remorse and the deliberate cycle of harm. There is a quiet, chilling moment when you finally see it, when the person in front of you causes you pain, looks you in the eye, and feels absolutely nothing. No hesitation, no regret, no flicker of guilt, just cold detachment. And you realize, this isn't a lapse in judgment. This isn't emotional immaturity. This is who they are. Psychopaths do not experience remorse the way others do. They do not sit with the weight of their choices. They do not reflect on their actions or seek to repair what they've broken, because in their world, harm is not a failure, it's a form of control. And if you try to hold them accountable, you won't receive empathy. You'll receive inversion. You say, "That hurt me." They reply, "You're too sensitive." You say, "You broke a promise." They respond, "You're always trying to blame me." You bring up patterns. They accuse you of being obsessed. The more you try to address the damage, the more they twist the narrative until you are left questioning your own expectations. Their goal is not to understand your pain. Their goal is to disarm it, to recode it, to turn it back on you so that they never have to face themselves. They hurt you, and somehow you're the one who ends up apologizing. This is not just manipulation. This is psychological corrosion. The Stoics believed remorse was a sign of inner nobility. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." But what happens when the person who injures you feels nothing at all? No guilt, no shame, no conflict between their behavior and their beliefs. That is the mark of a dangerous mind. One that does not grow from experience but repeats destruction without hesitation. And it never happens just once. The first harm may seem subtle, a thoughtless insult, an emotional withdrawal, a broken promise, but it's followed by denial, then detachment, then repetition, and each time it becomes more calculated, more refined, more efficient. You try to make sense of it. You try to explain how much it hurt, but they remain still. And when they do speak, it's only to shift the blame, to make you feel like the aggressor. Their cruelty is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, passive, cloaked in logic or sarcasm, but its impact is no less devastating. It leaves you doubting your feelings, suppressing your voice, and carrying emotional weight that was never yours to bear. Over time, you begin to internalize the damage. You start to believe that maybe you are too demanding, too emotional, too weak. But the truth is this: your pain is not a burden. Your expectations are not unreasonable. What's unreasonable is remaining loyal to someone who weaponizes your vulnerability and feels no remorse for the wounds they inflict. And that is what you must see clearly. Remorse is not a weakness, it is a compass. A person who cannot feel remorse cannot love, because love without accountability is control. Love without empathy is exploitation. And love without growth is not love, it is imprisonment. Ask yourself, do I see real change when I express my pain, or only temporary promises? Do they reflect on their actions and take responsibility, or do they dismiss, minimize, or accuse? Do I feel heard, or am I constantly defending my emotions, begging for basic decency? If you are caught in a cycle of harm without healing, if their apologies feel hollow and their behavior remains unchanged, then you are not in a relationship, you are in a cycle of abuse. The Stoics teach us to face truth without fear, to act from reason, not from impulse. And when someone shows you, again and again, that they can harm without consequence, you must believe them. You must stop rationalizing their behavior and start recognizing the pattern, because the most dangerous people are not those who make mistakes. They are the ones who feel nothing when they do. They cause pain and then call you dramatic. They betray you and then call you controlling. They flip the script so well. You begin to rewrite your own story just to keep them in it. But there comes a moment of clarity, a moment when you stop seeking justice from someone who doesn't believe in it, a moment when you stop explaining the obvious, a moment when you realize that your healing will not come from their understanding, but from your decision to leave, to step away, to reclaim your power without their permission, because remorse is a sign of moral alignment, and when a person lives without it, they are not just lost, they are dangerous. Withdraw your trust, guard your peace, and remember, your suffering is not theirs to define, it is yours to end. 3. Superficial charm and strategic likability. It starts as a whisper, subtle, flattering, disarming. You meet someone who seems to mirror your soul. They lock eyes, listen with precision, reflect your passions back to you with stunning accuracy. Within hours, you feel a closeness that normally takes months to build. You find yourself saying, "I've never met anyone like this." And that's the first clue. Because what you're experiencing isn't love, it's design. A carefully orchestrated performance, scripted to bypass your defenses. This isn't connection, it's capture. A psychopath doesn't walk into your life waving red flags. They arrive with perfect timing, perfect words, and the perfect story. They study you like a blueprint. Your values, your memories, the small details that most overlook. And then, like an actor slipping into costume, they become your ideal. Not because they are that person, but because they know how to appear as if they are. They don't seek to be understood. They seek to be believed. Their charm is not real. It is a mask, a bait, a rehearsed illusion of intimacy designed to gain access to your trust. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Because it feels good. It feels rare. It feels like fate. But what you're responding to is not who they are. It's who they pretend to be. And once you begin to trust them, once you begin to open up and invest emotionally, the mask stays on just long enough to hook you. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, it slips. The charm fades. The energy shifts. And you're left wondering what changed. The truth is, nothing changed. What you're seeing now is who they truly are. Detached, cold, controlling. Stoic philosophy teaches us to stay alert to the difference between what something appears to be and what it truly is. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind, and when your thoughts are shaped by someone else's deception, your mind becomes a battlefield fighting for clarity against confusion deliberately planted in your path." With a psychopath, the charm was never about you. It was never an act of genuine interest or admiration. It was leverage, or strategy, a hook placed gently but firmly into your psyche. It is not a gift. It is a test. To see how much of yourself you're willing to surrender in exchange for feeling seen. And once you've passed that test, once you've proven that their performance has worked, the manipulation begins. The compliments turn to silence. The presence turns to distance. And if you try to question the change, they dismiss you. Or worse, blame you. You begin to rationalize their coldness. Maybe they're busy. Maybe you're being too sensitive. Maybe you imagined the connection. That's the trap. Because their charm was so convincing, your mind scrambles to justify the shift. You chase the person they pretended to be. You bend your boundaries just to feel close again. But what you're chasing was never real. It was a mirage. Psychopaths don't bond. They bind. They create dependency through affection and admiration, then use that bond to control, to extract, to destabilize. Their charm is the first tool in that process, a carefully sharpened weapon wrapped in compliments and smiles. If you feel like you're being rushed into closeness, if their affection feels rehearsed, accelerated, or too perfectly aligned pause, that unease in your gut is not insecurity. It's awareness. It's your inner clarity whispering through the noise. Ask yourself, do they respect your boundaries? Or do they subtly pressure you to break them? Do they continue to show interest when you're not easy to please? When you disagree? When you assert your needs? Or does their warmth vanish the moment you're no longer easy to mold? Real connection withstands resistance. False charm collapses when control is threatened. The Stoics remind us judge not by flattery, but by consistency. Judge not by words, but by actions. Charm without character is manipulation. Attention without respect is a trap. And if someone makes you feel seen only when you are silent, small, or submissive, they are not loving you. They are managing you. You don't need to confront them. You don't need to explain yourself. You only need to see clearly and step away, because the strongest act of self-defense is not in arguing with the mask, it is in refusing to need it. Do not try to win back a false connection. Do not grieve the loss of a performance. Stand still, step back, and remember, what you're feeling is not rejection. It is liberation. 4. A parasitic mindset. Emotional and financial exploitation disguised as love, need, or intimacy. This is the slow invasion, the kind that doesn't begin with conflict, but with closeness, the kind of harm that doesn't leave bruises, but leaves you empty, drained of your strength, your resources, your clarity. At first, they seem grateful. They admire your generosity. They marvel at your stability. They speak in romantic terms of building together, of facing life as a team. But make no mistake, what they seek is not connection. It is consumption. They attach themselves to your energy like a silent weight, growing heavier with time, until you are the one carrying everything emotionally, financially, mentally, while they contribute less and less. What begins as a simple favor, a meal, a place to stay, a small loan quickly evolves into a pattern of entitlement. Your money becomes their solution. Your home becomes their shelter. Your time becomes their lifeline. And every time you give, they ask for more, not with force, but with subtle coercion. They frame it as love, as support, as what anyone would do in a relationship, but a true partnership gives in both directions. This gives in only one, and when you begin to hesitate, when your inner clarity starts to whisper that something feels off, they respond not with understanding, but with guilt. After everything I've been through, how can you abandon me now? Or, you used to be so supportive. What changed? What changed is you started waking up. You began to see that your care was being converted into currency, that your effort was not being matched, but harvested. And the more you gave, the more they took without gratitude, without reciprocity, and without end. You start covering their expenses, their needs, their moods, while yours are placed on hold. Your dreams shrink, your energy fades, and all the while, they remind you how lucky they are to have you, never how lucky you are to have them. The Stoics taught that freedom lies in discipline, and that true wealth lies in self-sufficiency, not in draining the strength of others. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." But a psychopath lives with endless want, masked as need. And worse, they see what you've built not as a reflection of your effort, but as something they are entitled to. They don't see your achievements as sacred, they see them as available. If you have it, they want it. If you earned it, they believe they deserve it too. And if you try to protect it, they frame you as selfish. This is not love. This is exploitation. And the most disturbing part, it often hides behind the language of intimacy. We're a team. What's mine is yours. I would do the same for you. But those are just words. What matters is action. Are they building with you? Or are they simply living off your labor? Do they show up in moments of your need? or only when they have a new crisis to drop in your hands? Do they invest in you emotionally? Or do they disappear when it's your turn to ask for help? And when they do give something attention, affection, small gestures, it's always with strings. It's never free. It's never clean. It's designed to keep you hooked, to reset the cycle, to convince you to keep giving while they continue to take. And when you finally reach your limit, when you stop funding their lifestyle, their excuses, their chaos, they either lash out or vanish. Not with sorrow, not with confusion, but with the cold efficiency of someone who has already found their next source. You are left not just with financial strain or emotional fatigue, you are left with shame, with confusion, wondering if you were naive, wondering if it was your fault. But hear this clearly. Your mistake was not giving. Your mistake was staying after it became clear that what you were offering was being consumed, not cherished. That your heart was being treated like a faucet, not a gift. That your boundaries were being treated like obstacles, not expressions of self-respect. Ask yourself, do they take more than they give? Do their problems always outweigh yours? Do they make you feel guilty for having needs, while expecting you to meet all of theirs? Have you started hiding your own stress just to avoid being seen as unsupportive? If the answer is yes, then you are not in a relationship. You are in an arrangement, and one built entirely on your sacrifice. The Stoics remind us, do not hand over your peace to anyone, no matter how softly they ask. You are not cold for setting limits. You are not cruel for saying no. You are not selfish for protecting what you have worked so hard to build. A person who truly loves you will not drain you. They will replenish you. They will stand beside you, not on top of you. They will carry the weight with you, not make you carry them. So if someone in your life only shows up when they need something, if your generosity is being mined, instead of honored, it is time to step back, not with anger, but with discipline, with self-respect, with silence. You owe no explanation for choosing to protect your energy. You owe no guilt for removing yourself from a one-sided transaction masked as love. Your worth is not defined by how much you give to someone who refuses to give in return. Your worth is found in your ability to stand up, step back, and walk away before you are drained beyond repair. Let that be your act of strength. Let that be your freedom. 5. They weaponize chaos not as a side effect of dysfunction, but as a deliberate and calculated form of control. While most people seek stability, clarity, and connection as a foundation for meaningful relationships, the psychopath sees calm as an obstacle. Peace is threatening to them because peace makes manipulation harder. In stillness, you start to see clearly. In silence, your instincts speak louder. In order to prevent that clarity from forming, they create disorder emotionally, mentally, and socially. They disrupt conversations, stir conflict where none existed, shift moods unpredictably, and ensure that every environment they enter slowly becomes unstable. But here's what makes this so dangerous. They do it without ever appearing aggressive. Their chaos is not loud at first. It is subtle, sophisticated, and designed to make you feel off balance without knowing why. They will twist your words in ways that make you question your own memory. They will provoke arguments between you and others, then present themselves as the voice of reason. They'll float misleading comments, create tension behind the scenes, and then step back while others take the blame. All the while, they remain calm, controlled, composed. And when you finally react, when you raise your voice or express frustration, they'll point the finger and say, "See, you're the problem." And in that moment, your credibility starts to erode, not because you are unstable, but because they've engineered a situation to make you appear that way. This is not random. This is tactical. The Stoics warned us about the power of emotional control. Epictetus said, "If someone provokes you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation, not to blame yourself, but to remind you that power lies in your response. And when you are caught in the gravity of someone who feeds on chaos, your most powerful move is to stop feeding the fire, because they do not just seek attention, they seek dominance. They want you reactive, distracted, always explaining, always defending, always too tired to question why the same patterns keep repeating. And the ultimate goal, isolation, as they stir conflict and confusion in your world. They begin to position themselves as your only safe harbor. They undermine your relationships. They sow doubt. They slowly become the sole interpreter of your reality. They want you to believe that others are against you, that no one understands you, and that only they truly get you. This is how control deepens, by making them your only point of emotional reference. Ask yourself, do I constantly feel off balance around this person? Do simple conversations become complicated without explanation? Do I find myself apologizing for things I don't fully understand? Defending myself more than expressing myself? And feeling emotionally drained after almost every interaction? And most of all, do they always seem to be calm while everyone else is in distress? That is the giveaway. That is the blueprint of weaponized chaos. When storms seem to follow someone but never touch them directly, it is because they are not caught in the storm. They are creating it. The Stoics teach us to cultivate inner order, to build a mind so disciplined, so rooted in truth, that it becomes immune to the games of the unstable. But that begins with awareness. And awareness demands that you stop trying to fix the chaos. You stop trying to bring logic to what is designed to be confusing. You stop hoping they will understand, because deep down they already do. Their behavior is not born of misunderstanding. It is born of intent. And so, your task is not to explain, not to prove, not to confront. Your task is to reclaim stillness. Withdraw your energy. Observe the patterns without getting pulled into them. Because when you stop reacting, when you stop participating, the manipulation loses its grip. You begin to see clearly. You begin to feel yourself again. And in that stillness, you find the courage to walk away, not with rage, but with certainty, because real power does not come from overpowering others. It comes from mastering yourself. If someone consistently brings disorder to your life, if their presence leaves you confused, anxious, and emotionally depleted, they are not chaotic by accident. They are strategic. And the most effective strategy against chaos is not confrontation, it is detachment. Pull back. Go silent. Let the dust settle. And you will see what they worked so hard to keep hidden. Then, without fanfare, without explanation, you walk, not because they won, but because you chose peace, because you remembered who you are, because you realized that a life of clarity, purpose, and strength can never be built in the shadows of someone else's storm. And in that moment, you rise not in noise, but in quiet, controlled power. 6. pathological lying, and the quiet destruction of your reality. This is not about someone telling the occasional white lie or bending the truth to avoid embarrassment. This is about a person who lies as a way of life, who uses falsehood as a tool to control, to manipulate, and to dominate your perception of the world around you. At first, their lies may seem harmless, a small exaggeration, a forgotten detail, but over time, something starts to shift. They lie when they don't need to. They lie even when the truth would serve them better. And they lie with such calm, such confidence, that you start to question what's real. You tell them you remember a conversation. Clearly, they deny it with a straight face. You confront them with something they said. They respond with confusion or anger. And slowly, your certainty begins to erode. This is not accidental. It is a tactic, a psychological operation designed to take away the one thing you rely on most, your own mind. Psychopaths don't just manipulate facts. They manipulate your trust in your own senses, your own experiences, your own memory. They create confusion, not as a byproduct of chaos, but as a calculated form of control. When you can no longer trust what you saw, what you felt, or what you remember, you begin to defer to them for the truth. That's exactly what they want. They don't seek compromise. They don't seek agreement. They seek dominance over your internal reality. One of the most insidious forms of this manipulation is gaslighting, the slow and systematic destruction of your ability to trust your own judgment. You'll hear things like, "That never happened," when you know it did. Or, "You're too sensitive," when you're simply expressing a basic human need. You'll be told that your reactions are irrational. Your tone is aggressive. Your memory is wrong. And the more you try to hold on to your truth, the more they twist it, until you feel like you're the unstable one. This is not love. This is psychological warfare. They are not confused. They are deliberate. The Stoics warned us we are not disturbed by things, but by the views we take of things. And when someone else controls your view, your inner world becomes a prison. You start walking on eggshells. You stop bringing things up. You begin to shrink your thoughts, your opinions, your voice, not because you've changed, but because they've taught you that your reality is not valid. And that is the goal. Not just to make you believe them, but to make you disbelieve yourself. They will mix truth with fiction so skillfully that even your instincts become suspect. You'll hear a story that sounds familiar, but feels off. You'll see patterns, but you'll doubt them, because every time you get close to clarity, they cloud it again with charm, with tears, with rage, or with silence. They will play the victim, accuse you of being controlling, and make you feel like the abuser. And when you finally bring evidence to the table, clear, undeniable proof, they won't surrender. They'll pivot, deflect, blame. They'll accuse you of being paranoid, of over-analyzing, of being obsessed. And just like that, the conversation turns. You're no longer talking about their behavior. You're defending your sanity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But what happens when those thoughts are under siege? When every conversation becomes a maze? When your truth is treated like fiction? That is the cost of pathological lying. Not just the damage it does to trust, but the damage it does to your identity. You begin to feel fragmented. You start apologizing for things you didn't do. you find yourself confused more often than clear. That is not a coincidence. That is the outcome of their design. Ask yourself, do I feel more anxious since this relationship began? Do I spend hours replaying conversations, trying to make sense of what was said? Do I feel the need to record, screenshot, or document things just to prove to myself they happened? If so, you're not just dealing with dishonesty. You're experiencing a form of psychological domination. The Stoics would tell you, return to stillness. Observe without emotion. If the facts do not match the words, believe the facts. If the person's story constantly changes, but the damage stays the same, believe the damage. You do not need to explain your truth 1,000 times. You do not need to convince someone who is committed to distorting reality. What you need is distance. What you need is silence. Because in the stillness, you will begin to hear your own voice again. And in that voice, you will find clarity, strength, and the courage to walk away. Not out of fear, but out of mastery. When someone wages war on your mind, refuse to surrender your peace. 7. A life ruled by impulse and a complete refusal to take responsibility. At first, their unpredictability may seem exciting. They're spontaneous, bold, full of stories and sudden decisions. They chase new experiences, new people, new plans with reckless enthusiasm. But what you're witnessing isn't freedom. It's instability, a pattern of chaos disguised as personality. And behind that chaos lies a refusal to own the consequences of anything they do. Psychopaths don't see responsibility as a natural part of life. They see it as something to avoid, to shift onto others, or to deny completely. When something goes wrong, it's never their fault. If they lose a job, the boss was threatened by their talent. If a relationship ends, you were too emotional, too demanding, or too boring. If they make a poor decision, it's because someone else pushed them into it. There is always a reason. There is always someone else to blame. And the more you try to hold them accountable, the more they turn the spotlight back on you. They say, you're too critical, too controlling, too unforgiving. And just like that, the conversation shifts from their behavior to your supposed lack of patience. The Stoics taught that responsibility is the foundation of self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." But the psychopath does the opposite. They perform virtue, but they live in avoidance. They talk about plans, but never follow through. They make promises, then disappear when it's time to deliver. And every time you ask for consistency, they accuse you of being rigid. They'll tell you that life is short, that they live in the moment. But the truth is, they live in escape. Escape from structure, escape from reflection, escape from any standard that demands accountability. And here's where the danger deepens. Because their chaos doesn't just affect them, it affects you. You become the cleanup crew. You cover their mistakes. You calm their storms. You pick up the emotional and financial pieces while they move on to their next thrill. You justify their choices to your friends, your family, even to yourself. You start to believe that maybe this is what love looks like: compromise, loyalty, forgiveness. But loyalty to what? To someone who builds nothing and breaks everything. To someone who disappears when things get real, only to reappear with new apologies, new promises, and the same old behavior. And when you confront the pattern, when you speak calmly, clearly, and ask for change, they don't reflect. They perform. They shift. They say the right words. They may even cry, but the change never comes, because to them, words are tools. Accountability is optional, and truth is flexible. Ask yourself, are you always the one holding things together? Do you carry the emotional weight of two people while they chase pleasure and leave damage? Have you been trained to expect instability and call it passion? This is not love. This is emotional exhaustion disguised as intensity. It is the slow erosion of your peace in exchange for their comfort. And the longer you stay, the more your standard for normal is distorted. You begin to tolerate what once felt unacceptable. You begin to brace for the next crisis. And in the silence between their disappearances, you begin to shrink, wondering when stability became too much to ask for. The Stoics remind us clarity is power. Look at the pattern, not the promises. Look at the outcomes, not the intentions. If someone constantly creates wreckage and never cleans it up, they are not growing. They are using you as a buffer between their behavior and its consequences. Withdraw from that role. Stop absorbing what they refuse to carry. It is not your job to rescue someone who isn't even trying to swim. It is not your duty to repair what someone else breaks for sport. Step back, not out of judgment, but out of wisdom, because a life of impulse without responsibility is not just chaotic, it is dangerous. And the closer you stand to it, the more it will consume you. Reclaim your stillness. Reclaim your standard. And remember, freedom is not the absence of structure, it is the presence of discipline. And no man or woman who refuses to own their actions will ever allow you to live freely beside them. You've now seen the 7 signs, each one a warning. Not shouted, but revealed in silence, in patterns, in the slow unraveling of your peace, from superficial charm to the weaponization of chaos. These behaviors are not accidents. They are strategies, and once you recognize them, you cannot unsee them. But awareness alone is not enough. You must act, not with rage, not with revenge, but with discipline, with clarity, with the quiet force of someone who has reclaimed their inner ground. The Stoics taught that we cannot control the behavior of others, but we can control how long we stand in the fire. You do not have to fix them. You do not have to convince them. You only have to protect your mind, guard your peace, and choose a life that reflects your strength, not your suffering. Do not return to confusion out of nostalgia. Do not chase closure from those who profit from your doubt. Your healing begins the moment you trust what you see, the moment you value your calm over their chaos, and the moment you walk not because you hate them, but because you finally love your own peace more than their illusion. Let that be your decision. Let that be your turning point. And let it be done without noise, without permission, and without looking back, because the most powerful escape from manipulation is not a scream, it's silence, it's presence, it's leaving without explanation and never needing to return.